did help her to purchase another home, and it was a different inspector, a different home inspector, and he got to the, swear to God, he got around the back. We were in the backyard, and I've never had this happen. The inspector said, "I'm done. I'm walking. I'm not doing this. I feel a lawsuit coming on." And I was like, "Oh my God." Same client. And that's actually when I said, we need to separate and go our own ways. And I wish them well.
Welcome to a series of unfortunate real estate events, a podcast where we talk about real issues that come up from the time a property goes under contract to the time it actually closes, and what the other real estate professionals can learn. This week, I'm joined with Donna Zona from eXp Realty, and we're going to go through some closings that just didn't go to plan and ultimately how they turned out.
Awesome.
Donna, thank you for joining me today.
Hello.
Most of my guests, we are good. Most of my visitors probably don't know who you are, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am Donna Zona. I have been a real estate agent for 19 years. I have 4 kids, 2 grandchildren, 1 on the way. And this is real estate. I just love it. I love what I do. I love where it puts me in life and the people that I meet. So yeah, pretty much in a quick nutshell there.
What got you into real estate?
So what got me into real estate? When I purchased my first home, I was a single mom, 3 boys, and I purchased a home. I was not an agent at the time, and I purchased the home from a family member, which everyone thinks that when it's a family member, it's going to go nice and smooth. But it was the worst closing I ever had attended. I walked in there crying and I left crying. And it was, I just remember saying that if I was someone who was in the real estate world, I would just never let that happen. And now that I've seen the way the process is, there was so many things that took place that shouldn't have taken place. And I didn't have representation. So that's the biggest thing too, especially in today's world. We need representation. So, got my license, and 19 years later, my closing was still the awful closing. So that's good.
Yeah, I
That's
gotta
good.
say, I think one of my worst closings was representing my father in the sale of their house. So I get it.
Yeah, I did that too.
When when I when I say the worst, my father literally walked out of the closing, and the other attorney calls me afterwards. He goes, "Man, your dad is tough." I go, "Yeah,"
Yeah,
and I can't say anything to him because it's my dad. What is he
yeah,
going to say?
yeah.
I outrank you.
It's
You got to
simple.
listen to me. So I completely understand that.
Yeah,
So
I
let's
represented
talk
my
about some.
dad.
I want to hear more about.
It's wild. Yeah, I represented my
I
dad
want to
on
hear.
his closing, and we got under contract, great contract, and all of a sudden he's like, "Cancel it." And I'm like, "I just can't cancel it. Like, you can't just cancel it." And, they're nervous, and it's like with everybody, everyone's nervous. And, so I had to talk them, go through everything with them. But yeah, it's like, no, you can't just cancel it. So it's crazy.
And I think a lot of clients don't understand that, right?
They
You're
don't.
entered into a contract. You can't just change your mind because somebody offered you more money or you paint. My favorite is I had a client that painted the house before we listed it. Well, after we listed it, right?
Yep.
And after it was under contract, he's like, "I'm going to have the house painted." And then he fell in love with the house again. It was all clean and fresh, and he's like, "All right, I'm not leaving now." I'm like, "You don't
Yeah,
have that
do that.
choice now. Sorry."
Although I will
No.
share that, when I was getting ready and thinking about selling that particular home that I was just talking about, I was having it painted. and my kids we put everything in a pod, and it got all painted inside, and I thought, I really like it. And so we took everything out of the pod. And they're like, who does this? So, but I didn't have it
So
listed.
you guys, did you end up staying there?
Stayed for a little while longer.
Did you end up staying?
I did. Yeah, I did. Um, but yeah, so I ended up selling it and moving on from that. But it's hard to um I will say, like, even if I sold my own place again, I probably would have somebody do it for me. I have no problem doing that. And to take myself out of it and have someone take care of all the details, because it's not an easy process. There's a lot involved, and especially in the last several years, there's so much more involved, legalities and everything. That's why we have attorneys like you who keep us straight, not only as an agent, but as the buyer seller. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
And I think back, you're exactly right, right? Like, I didn't represent myself when we bought our own house. I mean, I represented myself, but I didn't really, right? I have another attorney in my office that represented me, but I was getting emotional over stuff that, my mortgage broker and my realtor said, Kishore, you know better, right? This isn't going to be an issue. And well, I'm like, yeah, but I didn't have myself there to assure me that everything was going smoothly and that I don't need to worry,
Yeah,
right? Um,
it's a lot. It's a
and
big,
I think
big
that's
deal. A
the
lot of
danger.
money.
A lot of money, but it's also what nobody realizes, and a lot of, I think, for sale by owners don't think about this, is it's an emotional process,
Mhm.
right? You, me, the mortgage broker, we're all there playing cheerleader, psychologist, therapist. We're holding their hands through things that they get emotional about, which I understand, but it's not stuff that, if you have somebody there guiding you, you need to worry about.
One of the things too that I always have to feel I need to say with my clients is it sounds nonchalant sometimes when you're explaining things. And I always tell them, I'm really sorry if it sounds nonchalant, or that I don't not that I don't care, because I care about everything, but we sound nonchalant, and that's the word I use, because it's our everyday thing, our everyday dealings, and every transaction's different. Um, and we meet so many different personalities. So, yeah, we have to keep that in mind. We are the ones to guide them through it, and to not be so transactional. It's a personal thing. It is a personal thing. I mean, especially when you've been through it yourself. Yeah.
I've told clients often it's like pregnancy, and everyone, being a man, everyone laughs at me, but it's true. I have two kids. The experience from, and I remember most of it. My wife doesn't, and that's the exact answer, right? Pregnancy is extremely painful. It's And all that pain melts away when they hand you your kid,
It's true. It's true.
right? You forget all about because if you didn't remember it, most people probably wouldn't get pregnant again, right?
True.
So, and I say the same thing. As soon as I give you the keys, you forget about all the headaches we went through.
Yep.
And of course, I always get one or two moms that are like, "No, I remember every second of it." I'm like, "Oh, bad example."
Yeah.
Then.
No, no, I get that. And that's the truth. I mean, I had four, but, and they also forget about the house that may have gotten away, that they completely fell in love with, and, cried over. Either they didn't get it during submitting the original offer, or maybe something in inspection came up and they had to walk away, and they just so upset. But when they find that house that they end up purchasing, they don't even remember details about that other house. So it's the same, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same.
Exactly.
We're actually doing
So I'm going to
photos
take you
now
down.
to a house that is it was a family home, and taking all the pictures off the walls and stuff like that. So it's an emotional ride.
But having somebody like you by the side is what makes a difference,
Yes, I agree.
right? That's what I don't think people realize. Having your real estate team by your side through this process makes a huge difference,
Huge. And having a real
right? Which is,
estate,
I think, a great transition into talking.
yes. Yeah, I was going to say having a real estate
I
team
don't know. You're about to say something.
with our team behind us, because that's what makes it work as well. So, as you know,
Yes, which transitions perfectly. Let's talk about one of those fun experiences you've had. I'm gonna have to come back and ask you a little bit about your personal transaction of that you went into the closing crying and came out. We'll come back. We'll end our episode with that. But tell me a little bit about a deal that you went into it thinking it was gonna be smooth, and it didn't come out that way, right? I mean, I think that's what a lot of our biggest complaints are is that things get stressful over most of the time. It's a little something little small little issue that just didn't get handled well. But can you think of a time that you had a closing that just didn't go to plan?
so this one that I'll start with is we never did get to a closing, but I did get to sit in a courtroom and have to testify. And this just happened yesterday, actually. So after 2 years of being subpoenaed over a buyer that I represented, um, and I think sometimes too, seeing certain red flags in personalities is something we need to pay more attention to. And I always think, oh, I could do this. I can make it so that everybody's happy, and it just doesn't end up that way. Um, so unfortunately, we the first home we went under contract with had a lot of issues. Um, and this was over an inspection report that she didn't want to pay the second half of the payment, um, which I don't understand that, but she just was refusing the buyer. And we used the report in our request for repairs. So we did use the report, and which I didn't know that the inspector didn't want her to use the report. I didn't know what was happening on that end of it, but she got the report to me because this is what we do. We request repairs and blah blah blah. But so, anyways, he ended up um, suing her for the other half of the money, and 2 years later now, from they were continuing it. Um, we ended up in court yesterday. So they just wanted to hear from me. Basically, was the report used? Yes. And she was basically saying that it wasn't. So, which was unfortunate. Um, so in between there, though, so I don't know what the outcome's going to be. The judge didn't make a decision yet. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to sometimes unfortunately deal with. But I did end up in my 19 years of doing this, I've never had to ask a buyer or to tell a buyer that I wasn't going to be working with them. So that was upsetting to me because that's not who I am. And it was upsetting. I did help her after we got out of that contract. I did help her to purchase another home, and it was a different inspector, a different home inspector. And he got to the, swear to God, he got around the back. We were in the backyard, and I've never had this happen. The inspector said, "I'm done. I'm walking. I'm not doing this. I feel a lawsuit coming on." And I was like, oh my God, same client. And that's actually when I said, we need to separate and go our own ways. And I wish them well. And yeah, it was just, again, we have so many different personalities, and I'm very good at trying to, or I do keep them at bay. But this one was tough. This was a tough one. So, yeah.
Was the what what was he smelling the lawsuit over? Was she just making a stink over silly things, or is it
So,
just the house had issues?
so for the second for that inspector, she wanted him to write certain things on the report in a certain way. And he was like, but that's not what it is. And she's like, well, that's how you have to write it. And he said, well, but that's not what it is. And she just kept insisting. And finally he said, we're gonna stop. I just don't feel comfortable doing this inspection. So, yeah.
I can't say I blame him.
Oh no,
I
I
can't
was
say I blame him at all, right?
absolutely, especially knowing what I just had gone through on the last property with her. I just, no, I didn't, the owner called me from the company. She's like, what's happening? I said, you know, no, I didn't blame him either. You know, the inspectors are there to show the buyers, this is going to be your home. This is what you need to do, and call out, of course, and you know, not to be dictated to on how this report is going to be written and stuff like that. So it was very intense, and I was done. So, but then again, 2 years later, apparently I wasn't done. I had to go there, uh, you know, say my what they wanted me to say and be done with it. So hopefully, I feel that that inspector deserves the other half of that cost. He did his job.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, they did their job to do their job. I was actually talking with somebody yesterday, and I said, home inspections aren't meant to scare you, and I think a lot of people get scared by them. It's a point of leverage almost,
Hmm.
and not necessarily that you're going to get a better deal in the house. It's leverage in the sense you understand what you're buying,
Correct.
right? Like,
Yep.
where the key things are.
Yeah.
I think,
Where's the water shut off? You know, where stuff like
yeah,
that. Like you need to know. You
where's
need
the
to
gas shut off? Where's the electrical? Yeah,
learn. Yeah.
the things that nobody just naturally teaches you.
No. And if there are problems, then we usually always work it out. There's always something that can be fixed. And having negotiation um, experience, I think that is, I'm always up to negotiate, even as is properties. No one wants the contract to end, so let's talk and see what we can do. Yeah.
So, what would you say is a lesson that came out of that? That those two troublesome closings with that client.
Red flags. Knowing that it's okay to not accept someone as your client. And it's okay. It's okay to walk away from someone, I will say, I did some research afterwards, and everything that I thought or I came across as a red flag was true. There was others before me, and yeah, it's just if you're not connecting with someone right off the bat, and for solid reasons, it's okay to walk away. You don't have to represent everybody, you know. So I've learned that now.
I think I think that's a lesson that both somebody looking to buy, sell real estate, or an agent. Just because you're working with somebody doesn't mean that you have to work with them.
Yes,
Pay attention to the red flags
pay attention to the red flags, and
because they're always there.
yeah, they're always there, and even the newer agents, they get in the business, they think it's going to be quick money, and it's not all about the money. It's representation, and I was finding that as much as I was trying to represent her to the best of my ability and keep her calm and understanding the process, it wasn't going to happen. it just wasn't going to happen. So at that point on that second inspection, um, I knew that I had to cut ties.
And it's probably, well, 2 years later, you know it was a good decision because
No,
she's
I
getting sued by that home inspector.
so wild.
Um, so, uh, yeah,
So we were talking earlier too
I don't
about
think.
uh the contracts are contracts. You sign something, and first of all, I'm not an attorney, so I will guide my clients to the best contract and negotiate that for them. But once it's signed, that goes now to you guys. That's up to you that you do your job, I'm doing my job. I did have a seller who we went under contract, and then she decided that she didn't want to sell, and she wanted me to cancel the contract. And I told her, I can't. You have to talk to your attorney. You need to discuss that with them. And the attorney told her, you can't cancel it. And the buyer they said, give the buyer the option. They can either walk if they want to. The buyer didn't want to walk. They wanted the house. So, so that was interesting. That was stressful. She ended up not speaking to me
I
anymore.
had one.
So
I
crazy.
had one similar to that where we worked it out though, right? The sellers were going through a breakup. They weren't married, and they listed the house, and then they reconciled midway through the closing process and refused to sell the house. Um, Luckily, the buyers weren't sold on the house anyway, so we were able to work it out. But got the buyer a nice payday.
Yeah.
We got that all worked out. Got a nice payday. My client got paid handsomely to walk away. He was thrilled with it. But the fascinating thing, I kept in touch with the listing agent because I was curious. They ended up splitting up again 6 months later. So they wasted like 30 or 40 grand in paying off my client, having to refinance the house, do everything they did, and they just split anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's entertaining what people will agree to do. Um, so
Yeah. It's definitely
what
entertaining.
about another time? You got any good stories?
Oh my goedness.
Good entertaining. Do you have an entertaining one?
An entertaining, why those weren't entertaining. um,
I mean,
oh,
they're entertaining. It's more of a sadness. Do you have any funny ones?
there's always something that is, trying to think. I must have, there's always something going on.
Or
Well,
let
like
let
even, like maybe not to get to a closing table, but things that when people list their property say, that there is um
okay.
a primary suite, okay? And so you got your primary suite, you got your primary bathroom, and I was showing this property to one of my buyers, and we're literally standing in the bedroom, and we're both looking around, and we're like, where's the bathroom? It says it clearly states it on here. I mean, they even like had a description. Well, the bathroom was inside a regular sliding closet. Now, the closet, it wasn't expanded. It was the closet. It was a sink and a toilet with a towel rack. So, stuff like that when you walk into homes, and um I don't know, it's always entertaining. After we get off the call, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that." But it's, I think that's why I love doing what I do so much is every day is something different.
Yeah, I always love it. I have a few realtors that will post when they go into some of the older houses in New Haven and Hamden, post pictures of like an old toaster that was installed above the heating vent back in the 20s or 30s,
Yeah.
right? Or I love the rotary phones that come up every now and then.
Yeah.
My agents will share pictures of rotary phones with me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, we have some pretty cool features in houses in Connecticut.
we absolutely do. We do. We have some cool features. I'm trying to think of some other stuff that has come up. It's most I will say, other than like that and the closing that I was just talking about that she wanted to sell, she couldn't, she had to move on. Everything ended up working out. Like she ended up in another home, the buyers got their home, and everybody closes, everyone gets, in the end, she may not have been as happy as everybody else, but it all worked out, and she got a nice amount for her house. um Usually it ends up, everything works out, it all works out in the end, the way it should, I guess, right?
Yeah, 95% of the time it works out. It just means we've got to get creative sometimes. And I would say, I talk a lot about our problem files because I think it's a great place to learn.
Yes.
But I think if I would look at it, probably 75% of our companies go through smoothly without a hitch,
Yes.
right? It's just easier to learn from mistakes.
Correct. Yes. um yeah, it's definitely my biggest thing, even with, so back to my own closing. um my own closing is that I should have had representation. I didn't think of it. I just figured it was going to be a smooth transaction. Um, and I sat at the table with my lender, um, and the person I was buying the house from, and we were discussing my financials and the appraisal amount and everything, which we never do that sitting at a table with the seller, right? Like I don't sit there with a lender, my buyer's lender, and this. So, um, and when she knew that the house appraised a little bit more than what I was buying it for, she wanted to increase the price. So it was, then it just,
Of course.
right? And so then it just turned out to be, how can we make this work? So instead of me having the advice of an agent to guide me through it, um, I should have walked. I really should have walked. I should have just said, listen, do what you need to do, get what you want to get, and I'm just going to move on and do my thing. But there's so many emotions involved. There's so much going on. And you want things to happen. So there was a lot that came out of that as well. That I learned just from, and even,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
going back to that, even when I bought my house, right? The sellers left all kinds of stuff behind, and I'm in this industry, right? And I was like, I don't know what to do with this now, right? The realtor guided me and saying, okay, we can tell them to come back and clean it up. We can tell them to get a credit, right? And we said, all right, we want a credit. They're like, well, you agreed in the beginning that we could leave whatever behind. I'm like, there's nothing in writing. The agent's
yeah,
like, no, that's not in writing.
no,
So that's the other part. Um, in it, you don't see things, you don't think about things, right? Because you're focused on other aspects of the transaction. You're picturing living in this house, not necessarily do we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. You're not. Even though I'm
yeah,
in the industry, you're in the industry. That's not what you're thinking about at that moment. You're thinking about, okay, my kids' room's going to be here.
yeah,
This is going to be my room. The kitchen's going to look like this. You're already dreaming living in the
yeah,
house. You're not
exactly.
thinking about the unemotional side of this is what we have to do,
Yeah.
right? Not that we
Yep.
can't be
Yep.
emotional and happy and excited for our clients. Our job is to be that strong rock during that rocky time for them.
When I get done with a closing, and this happened on that one that she wanted to cancel, everyone was so excited that it got done, and I just started crying my eyes out. I was so stressed, and it just getting to that, and um, there's a lot of emotion to it. But even stuff when you're I was with another young couple, and we did our walkthrough, uh, and I kept looking at the chandelier, and I'm like, something's just not right. Something's wrong. Something's not right. And sure enough, the seller took the chandelier and replaced it with something. Um, right? So now we're at closing, and my poor buyer, I felt terrible for it because the seller was like, who cares? I'm not bringing it back, and I'm not doing anything about it. He just, that's it. He was just, that's it. And so now what do? You got a buyer who, do you want to sign your documents? Or what are we going to do? And she's in tears, and I felt terrible. And stuff like that is what we need to work through, and have that ability to do that. And yeah, be the guidance. So be the guidance.
And those are the issues that we see come up. It's not things that are going to kill the closing. It's
No.
little, and I call them piddly fights because at the end of the day, it's not make or break the deal, but it's definitely important to our clients, right? So I'm not trying to downplay,
No.
but a lot of times we fight over things that are important to our clients, but in the grand scheme of things, probably aren't worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if they were just discussed earlier, so your chandelier, if the seller had mentioned it earlier, it might not have been a problem.
Yeah. Take it. Right? Yeah.
It's just upsetting when you find out it was done in a sneaky way.
Yeah. That's what's upsetting. So it's stuff like that that we all need to deal with. And it doesn't happen, like you said, all the time, but when it does, we have to be the professionals to keep it calm, make it work, get it through, get them their house of the dreams that they're all excited about, and yeah, and just get the closing done. But it's all good.
Yeah. I think that's great advice to end with. I'm not going to keep you any longer because that's a great tip, right? We just got to get it done so that it's nice and smooth.
Yep.
Donna, thank you for spending some time with me today.
So on.
I've got some great lessons out of it. I hope people can learn some lessons from you. So if somebody's looking to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
You can call or text or email. My phone number is 203-619-3762. And my email is easy, Donna Zona Real Estate @gmail.com. I'm always on social media.
Perfect.
So,
well, thank you for having us, Donna. Thank you for joining me today. I'm honored to have you as a guest.
Thank you.
I'll let you get back to taking pictures of what looks like to be a beautiful house.
Yeah, it is.
I'm only seeing the wall behind.
I know, the hutch. So thank you, Kishore. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.